Next up, we have the next speaker here. This time with hair, Swetha Murali. Swetha, join me on the stage here. Let's get another set of lessons learned.
Hey, Pete.
Hi, what's going on?
Yeah, you're right about my hair. I do have quite a bit of it.
Quite a lot. I could use some myself. Okay, well, I'll get out of your way. If you have any slides,
Mm-hmm.
click the share button, and yeah, I'll catch you in a few.
Yeah, thank you. So, hi everyone. Pete just took a second to introduce me, and this is Shweta. And I'm so thrilled to be here to share my 2022 learnings. It was definitely one long introspective session with myself, and I didn't quite anticipate that it was going to be a long introspective session, and that's how you'll find this session structured. And I'm also looking forward to hearing the lessons from the rest of the panelists. Not every day you sit with a few great minds in the space and chat through their learnings. So my journey began with ChargeBee. I worked on brand and product marketing, and I joined an early stage startup as a first product marketer, which then got acquired by ZoomInfo. And here I am, a senior product go-to-market manager at Chili Piper. So before I dive into my lessons, a bit of context about Chili Piper. We are a scale stage startup, and like our product marketing team is about like 3 member huge, and the marketing team is like 15 member huge. And I think that context is going to help you look at these lessons with that perspective. And one more context that I would like to leave you with is how the PMM team works at Chili Piper, because it's going to be a great opener for my biggest lesson of this year. And PMM at Chili Piper like goes by the name Product GTM, and the product go-to-market managers here are the business heads of the products. So which means the go-to-market org is closely involved in the revenue planning process, and we carry revenue targets like any of the marketing team members. We work very closely with the product team to understand the roadmap. We work with RevOps and finance to work on the projections, and we also work with every team involved in immediate and long-term demand creation capture to build out this plan. And once we have this plan in place, we build out the actions, and then the GTM org runs point on keeping track of how the things are working out. We go back, measure, and analyze results, and decide if we want to reiterate and like do quick test on the existing plan. So that's PMM at Chili Piper, which takes me to my first learning. I think it's how applying revenue optics gives a PMM org a turbo boost. So this was the first time I had a direct revenue or pipeline accountability as a PMM. I have always imagined what the dream brand would look like, and that finally happened at Chili Piper. I know that product marketing can be so many things at the same time, and in the list of all the things it is and it is not to me, I've become a huge believer that a product marketer needs to be closely involved in the revenue planning process, how different motions are working, and also understand how the channels are working. You can either be an active participant or you could just be skilled at reading the revenue plan. And this belief stems from me seeing success in 2 aspects this year. One is doing my job better, which means it has opened up avenues from which I can gather learnings, hear real time feedback, and also it gives me an opportunity to go back to the drawing board and iterate on everything that I'm producing. For let's say if our conversion rate on how the opportunity to close one is converting is less, I take it as a signal. And I start actually asking questions like, are we attracting the wrong ICP? Is the messaging not working with the audience? Or has anything changed in the market that it is impacting our close rates? And another example would be if our returns on the ad channel is not up to the mark, I'm able to ask myself, should we be working on a different proposition for the landing page? Or should the pitch on the ad creative be better? And let's say there's a pipeline stagnance and then you need some push. I'm able to ask myself if we should repackage and relaunch the part of a product in some way to get that market momentum. So I think that is how it's helping me like ask the right questions in the right relevant places and helping me do my job better. And a second aspect would be helping the team. do its job better. And by team, it's not just marketing team, because who really is PMM's team, right? On the end of the day, you're working with everyone, sales, customer success, product, engineering. You're just collaborating with everyone that at the end of the day, the organization itself feels like the team. So I think with the already existing cross-functional context that I had, I was already sweetly placed to find growth areas and opportunities in the gray zones that was there between all the functions. And I was able to capitalize on that by using revenue numbers as my North Star. And this single change in optics has helped me map product and market better. And I know that product marketing is supposed to do that, but I think it brought me this third dimension, which is see the mapping of product and market translate with revenue. And the second advantage, I think, is adding in the revenue optics is a great way to ensure that the PMM org is always outcome oriented, and it is not becoming activity oriented at any point and is straying away from the revenue organization itself. Which brings me to this lesson two: obsess about positioning and messaging alike. So this year, Chili Piper, we had like two big integrations, one with G2, where you could book a meeting right with your prospect on the G2 profile, and the other one with Gong, where we help businesses be compliant with the call recording laws. And in terms of the approach of our launches, we could have done the traditional, let's dive into the action items, let's just get things done, and let's try to figure out the adoption later. But what we did different this time was we took a step back and we put together a messaging charter for each of these launches. And this document was a handbook to anyone looking to learn more about the integration. So, what message we want to drive home, the end goal of this integration, how do we get there? Who is the ideal audience, and how do we communicate the value proposition to the audience, right? And I didn't look at this as a messaging initiative because messaging was already part of the positioning exercise that we did. What I looked at it was a micro messaging initiative. To put things in perspective, I'd like to go back to the basics. So there's positioning. Positioning helps you contextualize your product in the market. And then there's messaging. How I kind of internalized the definition of messaging is it's 3 to 4 story threads that can help you support your positioning statement better. And then there are these micro messages that you create, or probably one off, which helps package what you're launching immediately in a better way. So these micro messages helped us not shoehorn the campaigns to existing messaging pillars, and that becomes a problem because if you're shoehorning your messaging into a larger messaging pillar or a theme, you run the risk of being unclear. And the moment it happens, it hurts your conversion rate, it hurts your adoption, and your prospects and customers are really wondering what you want to deliver with that message that you're putting out. So these micro messages really came in handy, and not just external facing, but internally, I think every team that had its hand on the launch hit the ground running quicker because the thought work was already done. They had the base, and all they had to do was work on top of it to build the necessary assets to meet the objective. And after a point, the team that worked on it internalized it so much that they were able to reiterate the message in all the conversations that they were getting into. And this really increased the stickiness factor of how we wanted to position that particular integration. And in hindsight, I think it also created an additional point of entry. The positioning statement is there, it's cast its net, it's creating the vision, and it's buying in people. On the other hand, these micro messages also created audiences who kind of entered from bottom of the funnel, and they were primed to be sold on a larger vision. And the reason why I put it out as obsessed about positioning and messaging alike is because I've heard a lot of things about positioning. You have a lot of exercises that you go through, and messaging becomes a second step that doesn't really get enough limelight. And after this exercise was done, I went back and I thought probably both of it deserves like its own limelight in its own way. And so that's my lesson two. And my lesson three would be anecdotal and pre existing wisdom could be the biggest threat to a successful go to market motion, because today there are so many variables when it comes to figuring out a go to market strategy. products are evolving faster than they used to. You see new market entrants in a short period. Probably quarterly competitive analysis doesn't even make sense anymore. And you see existing companies like expanding into adjacent spaces. And after a point, everyone's like on everyone's toes, right? So when we were trying to figure out the go to market of a product, the competitive landscape looked different. And in terms of strategic decision, the feature capabilities, target audience, it just looked different. So we had a positioning built out, and we were already like working on the product, the features, and everything was in dev. But by the time it was near staging and we're testing out, so much had changed. Not just the competitive landscape, but also how the new market entrants were positioning themselves. And also, we noticed that the pulse of the customers was different. They were reacting to existing solutions in a different way. And to figure out the go to market, I realized was a process and it's a preparation, and you always need to stay current and relevant. So one thing that I started doing this year was putting the necessary signals in place to see any gaps in the system. And I think this also helps you get into a place of power where you take informed decisions. You could be an individual contributor owning a small part of the pie, or you could be the leader, but I think you should just go through this rigorous process where you place these systems in place and revisit them on a periodical basis. And the frequency with which you revisit them could change depending on how the market is evolving and changing. And I think one of my favorite quotes from a copywriter I look up to is Joseph Sugarman. He says that to be a best copywriter, you have to the key is knowledge. And I think that is very true for a product marketer as well. I would particularly go in deep and say arm yourself with broad knowledge, because any pre-existing knowledge and anecdotal evidences could push you in the wrong direction. Always question whatever's existing based on the newly learned market sentiments, competitive movements, and customer expectations. So for me, this continuous checks and balances helped reframe the positioning angle, and it also helped me take back information to the product and exec team. And we had to like reevaluate the entire threats and opportunities by going ahead with that particular product direction. And that was my lesson 3. It takes a lot of discipline, that I realized, but I think once you see it, the compounding effect was just like phenomenal. And finally, this is all about the past. I'm sorry. So what does 2023 look like? I think next year is going to be huge, not just for Chili Pepper. I think for a lot of companies in SaaS space, we have been talking to customers, and we are noticing how businesses are becoming conservative with their spending. Budget cuts are common, and with the higher acquisition cost, businesses are trying a lot to optimize for efficiency. And Chili Pepper luckily like sits in the heart of improving efficiency of inbound funnel and growing pipeline. So one of my key priorities is to ensure that existing and prospective customers are set up for success. They get the cushion that they need, and we are able to offer our product in a way that they're spending less but also seeing the most returns out of it. And that would be my 2022 and hopefully my 2023 priorities unless something changes. And
Awesome. Thank you very
to you.
much. Question. So you mentioned next year economic situation is an unknown and likely need to cut spend, and product marketing plays a role in helping companies become more efficient. So what are some examples of what product marketers can do to help that?
I think one major focus in terms of metrics is going to be expansion within your existing customer base, because it's getting harder to acquire new customers. And the second thing would be retention. I think product marketing team should be working very closely with account management to understand what the health of the customers are. And if they're at risk or if they're not really in a great place, it makes sense to take a complete review of how they're using your product. Look at metrics, product metrics, see if they are using all the power metrics, power features that would help them get the most out of your product. If not, draft that workflow that you could pass on to that customer so that they could get on board. I think showcasing ROI in terms of the product and value is super important for product markets at this point.
So some of the things you mentioned here are also typically done by product management. So what, in your opinion, so how is what product marketing does different than from just product goals, like when it comes to product utilization or things like that,
Yeah, I
retention?
think I think product marketing, product management, it's a lot about a strategic organization, right? I think these organizations morph themselves based on the existing teams. So in a place in an organization where product marketing is taking a backseat on utilization, product management could be leading it, especially if the founding team of the product management team like are super skilled at figuring all this out. I think it has a lot to do with the organization dynamics. But back at Chili Piper, if I have to speak for myself, I work very closely with the product management team, and they help me with the product metrics, they help me understand how the customers are using the product, and I take that back and I use that message, and I craft the necessary angle that I need to be pushing forward. I craft what we should be talking about to this particular customer from this segment, what would resonate and what would not, and what would really stick, and what I should be doing to retain. And I also own channels to some extent, right? So I think it's a marriage like between product management and product marketing when it comes to a lot of projects.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Swetha. Everybody, give Swetha a follow on LinkedIn. I'll see you around. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.